What's up, Buttercups? Welcome to Mean Age Daydream here on the Lines of Liberty Network with me, Brian McWilliams. Apologies, this is going to be a shorter show. I am just dealing with some different things right now that have me very, very distracted and trying to navigate my way through. So we're just going to focus on the one topic today, which is Francesca Hong. And of course, I don't know how many of you remember Hong Kong Phooey, the great cartoon from Hanna-Barbera, where the dog practiced kung fu. But of course, for the title of this episode, I had to say Francesca Hong Kong Phooey'd. But Francesca Hong is one of those people which, honestly, even though I know she's a Democrat socialist, right? And these Democrat socialists have, for whatever reason, and I had my theories, right, captured far too much of the population's vote. Francesca Hong narrowly beat somebody named David Crowley, who was, I guess, an executive in Wisconsin, to lose the primary. So she was running, basically polling ahead, going to win in this Wisconsin Democrat gubernatorial primary. And she had been projected to beat David Crowley, who was the establishment candidate. Now, this is despite the fact that Francesca Hong has all the crazy Democrat socialist positions, everything from, extreme taxes on the rich to the platform of reducing all the police funding, and how many times you've seen, like, get rid of all the prisons, get rid of all the police, which I'm sorry, doesn't even work. Even in a libertarian world, doesn't really work. You need to be able to have some sort of reaction. If you're going to have no police, you either have to have everybody able and willing to get a gun at any point in time and be able to protect themselves, or you don't have a functional society. And you have to either be able to reject those people who are violent, who don't take part in your society, from said society, or you have to have somewhere to put them. It's one of the most unpopular and most idiotic positions, yet somehow Democrat socialists are able to overcome it because of the promises, all of which are nonsense, by the way, none of which are going to come true, and all of which have been proven historically to be terrible ideas. But all the promises that we're going to tax the rich to death, we're going to give everybody free rent, frozen rent, UBI, free everything. We're going to have stores open up that are going to have 30% below retail, all these horrible promises. But yet she was projected to win. And this is also on top of the fact that this woman is a debased psychopath who legitimately in the past was diagnosed with, mental illness, was, I believe at one point in time, actually hospitalized because she had just kind of gotten completely off the rails. This is a woman who has gone out there with screeds against white people, who then, of course, marries a white man. And you've seen this before. And I don't know how or why a white man would see this person who hates them, apparently, unless this is all a big act, hates them, hates the white race, and yet goes, I can save her. I mean, like, in what world are you going to be able to save this person? So he has a child with Francesca Hong, who then in an interview, she goes on to say, and this is not verbatim, but basically goes on to say that having a white child put her in an uncomfortable proximity to whiteness. Yeah, this is my daughter, proximity to whiteness. We just call her Proxy for short. It's kind of cute. I mean, that is like, this is next level psychopath behavior. But despite all this, despite the fact that she comes across as an unhinged lunatic racist, she manages to get to the point where she is projected to win this vote. Now, it was tight. It was neck and neck. They both had 47 point whatever percent of the vote. There was some very suspicious activity that went on, though. However, very similar to what happened with the entire Neithya Raman, Karen Bass, Spencer Pratt election here in Los Angeles County, where a late night vote drop first had put Francesca Hong way ahead. Now, whether or not this was the same tactics that were used here in Los Angeles, which namely were ballot harvesting of the most, vulnerable populations, the homeless, the elderly, specifically, of course, taken from Skid Row. And we know where the votes came from here in Los Angeles, which was Skid Row. Thousands upon thousands of votes taken from homeless shelters where these people are registered but never actually stay, taken from going around and personally signing them up and then giving them money for their votes. I don't know if that's what happened here. But very late, and there was a very fascinating, I think it might have been CNN doing a live coverage of this, where they see this ballot drop come in and they are stunned. I mean, blown away and shocked by the fact that this has happened to put Francesca Hong in front of Crowley, the establishment candidate. But then they Uno reversed them because there was a second late night ballot drop wherein now the establishment candidate was raised up above Hong. Now, again, I don't know if this is valid. I don't know if this is curated by the Democrat establishment, but I know that there was a lot of worry about what would happen if Hong won. The fact that Wisconsin may, in fact, lose if she got there, because, of course, there's a GOP candidate running for governor of Wisconsin as well, and that to have this anti-white racist, to have this Democrat socialist trying to become governor of an entire state probably would not go that well. So were there some shady dealings there? Now, Crowley is black, by the way, so it's not like they put out a white candidate over Hong to try to eliminate the anti-white racist bias there. But this guy's an establishment black man. Did they, in fact, go, we got to nip this in the bud? We got to nip the Democrat socialist movement in the bud. Because if you're the Democrat Party as a whole, and by the way, AOC and Bernie Sanders, who are fairly radical in their own right, did not endorse Francesca Hong. And I think that's very notable because you've seen these honks going around campaigning for this and that, taking their pictures, doing videos with Mom Donnie in New York. Maybe something about this nutcase was a little bit of a bridge too far. So instead of campaigning for Francesca Hong, you had AOC taking videos of herself, taking her eggs out and getting them frozen a day before news breaks that she dumped her long-term ginger-haired boyfriend, who, not that AOC's the best looking anymore. She's nowhere near like she used to be when she first came into office, but always odd, just being honest, always odd to look at him and her next to each other, is he was always this ginger schlub from Boston. But it is notable that two of the most public-facing radical Democrats would not back this woman. And that's where you go, okay, if you're the Democrat National Committee, is this going to be a concerted movement to try to rein things in? Because you do see the momentum that the DSA has gotten, no matter how bad their ideas are. But look, even radical Democrats like Bernie and AOC, who of course are pulling in millions and millions of dollars through the benefits of capitalism, even they know that you are basically asking for a societal collapse if we allow the DSA to take over, if we allow these horrible ideas to play out within society. They're not that suicidal. And this has to be Democrats writ large, where they go, okay, no matter how much momentum this might have between young people. And again, my theory before was that the reason the DSA is getting so much momentum is because you have an economic state right now. And look, I'm not immune. I'm going through it right now. It's part of the reason I'm distracted right now, because I just had some fucking shit news on top of shit news. It's been all bad news, basically, for the entire month of August for me. So you've got people that are young that have been sold false bills of goods, forced into thinking they have to go to college, and basically everybody's saying, oh, we need a college degree. Well, guess what? You don't. And the degrees you're getting are worthless, and you're going out into an economic environment with 50% inflation over the past 10 years. You're going to a economic environment where you've got foreign nationals being hired in at rates higher than ever in history that are taking all the available jobs that you would have gotten. You're having AI simultaneously eradicate huge swaths of formerly thought career paths that were stable, that were like, this is what you should do if you always want to be able to find a job. Well, not anymore. This is being eradicated. So, of course, you're going to look at these people making these horrible promises that they're going to take care of everything, and then it's all the rich's fault. The people that are hiring and using the AI and this, well, they should have to pay for everybody. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. They're going to leave. And you're going to kill innovation. But that being said, I get where they're coming from. I'm not going to vote for it, but I get it. And you've got all of these establishment Democrats that are wealthy, that have made their money off these various other things, that are probably invested in, let's not forget, invested in, at least not until very recently were you not allowed to trade in the stock market, right, as a politician, invested in all of these corporations that the DSA wants to tear down. Of course they're going to say, we got to put an end to this. And on top of that, would you want to share a room with this psychopath? Would you want to have to deal with this person on a regular basis? I mean, it's bad enough that the Democrats have to deal with any number of low IQ, should never sniff public office dipshits who are regularly put in those positions by people even dumber than they are. Of course, half of them have been propped up by the same Democratic establishment. But to go another level and say, we can control the dumb ones. We can control the Bidens. We can control the Crockett's of the world. We can't control these people. They're a perfect combination of either stupid, evil, or stupid and evil on top of ignorant. How are you supposed to even talk to them? How are you supposed to make them see reason? How are you supposed to tell them historical facts? Because they clearly don't care and it doesn't matter to them. And because I get it to an extent. I don't get it from Francesca Hong, or I don't get it from a tenured professor on a tenure track. This Jason Arday scandal, where this guy has to resign from Cambridge, who was propped up by the academics wanting to look like they were not racist to an extreme. So they basically rose up somebody that had no business even being a teacher on any level, and lied throughout his entire past about sports, academics, through to his own education, his own challenges and, quote, disabilities, everything. And this man's propped up. Well, I just read this article in The Atlantic, which was from a black tenure track professor who decided he had enough with academia. And I'm like, reading, I'm like, okay, great. But then, of course, that guy goes, I've also been a socialist my entire life. You're like, do you not see the problems here? Disconnect. But I digress. Like I said, I'm going to finish this rant up, and we're going to call it an episode, and I'll be back next week, hopefully feeling a little bit more on my game. But the Francesca Hong situation, I think, is what you might see play out more, especially as we get farther into our political competitions going into the midterm elections. There is a limit to what people can take and handle, where there has to be a limit on both sides. Number one, is there a limit to believability? And I guess the Jason Arday scandal I was just talking about, this Cambridge professor, proves that if you have enough will behind, even idiotically, disproven ideas, if you have enough will behind a concept, let's say it's DEI, anti-racist, which is the problem with Cambridge and how this Arday character got into his position. If you have enough faith and belief in something like socialism, despite all of its historical failures, there is no end to where you will go, right? I mean, look at Antifa, look at any number of these different groups which have been rising up as economic situations got worse, as the disenfranchisement with the current system has been pronounced, even though it's crony capitalism that's to blame, not capitalism. There is no end to the point which you'll fight to. The question is, how much of society has to hit that point, and have we hit that point already? Because if that point gets so far past what the establishment can do with trickery and chicanery, that's when you really have to worry about things like, say, a civil war. And that's what I'm distinctly worried that we may get closer and closer to that point as the rest of the year goes out, because despite what the stock market might be doing, despite what Donald Trump might be saying, despite the fact that inflation is somewhat down, as I mentioned earlier, you still do have huge swaths of people that are completely desperate to make ends meet right now, that don't know what they are going to do. You've got, and I only know this because an ad agency client of mine did research into this at my request, 40% of parents right now in the United States, 40% of parents are nervous about spending on what their kids need for back to school supplies. How do you think those people are going to vote? Because that's terrifying. Back to school is not cheap. You're buying backpacks and pretzels and all this other crap. But that's what, a few $100? But we're at a point now in America where 40% of parents find that concerning. That's where dangerous ideas start to become popular ideas, when you hit that point. And I think we're very, very close to hitting this point where change is inevitable. The question is, which way will that change go? Which side are we going to be on? And how bad are things going to get? And I don't know the answer to that right now. But I'm pretty concerned about it. All right, that's it. Thank you for watching this, very raggedy episode. I do apologize, guys. It is what it is. I'm glad Francesca Hong lost, though. All right. Goodbye from me, from the Lions Liberty Network and from Mean Age Daydream. I will see you guys next week. And, be good to each other.